Hey, what's up guys? This is Anthony from Anthony's Customs, and for this review, we are looking at the SH Figuarts Super Saiyan Broly Full Power version from Dragon Ball Super. This is the new movie Broly with the green skirt. And whether you like the design or not, that's not what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about the figure. I personally don't have a problem with the design. It's okay. I mean, I don't prefer it necessarily, but I think it's fine. Either way, it doesn't matter. The figure itself is fantastic. Not in every regard. There are definitely a few issues we have to address, but by and large, I think it's pretty apparent just by looking at it that it's pretty super duper. So let's go ahead and get him off the stand and take a closer look. This guy stands just about 8.5 inches, which makes him just about, let's say 20.5 centimeters. Those are pretty rough estimates. I kind of aimed for like the middle of the top part of his hair because obviously the hair is very tall. And before we get into anything else, let's go ahead and just do a couple of quick comparisons. Here is the new Saiyan Raised on Earth Goku. It's not new anymore, but it's the one that probably most people have as far as being a good choice for a comparison. Let me even lower this a little bit so you can see more accurately. He's quite a bit larger. He's significantly bigger than Goku. And here is one of the other Brolys. I think this is the most recent one? No. Is it? I think this might be the second most recent one. I don't know anymore. And they're almost the same size. I mean, one's a lot bulkier, obviously. It's like stupid bulky. Like this guy's dumb big and this guy's a little bit more reasonably big. But they're both stupid. I mean, realistically speaking, the designs are not exactly realistic. But that's okay. It's cool. So there you go. You get your size comparisons there. He's about the same height, maybe a little taller than this guy, depending on how you have them both posed. Now it's time to talk about the aesthetics. For anybody who tells me when I say that the Figuarts need more shading most of the time that it's not necessary, no, it's not necessary, but it makes things look a whole lot better. Case in point. Look at this guy's skin areas. It's so good looking because they got the tone of the skin right and then they shaded it very nicely. They did it exactly how you're supposed to. When you're shading skin, you want to go darker but more vibrant and a warmer color, and that's exactly what they did for this guy. It looks really, really, really good. They nailed it. Looks fantastic. Could we have used some shading on the green, maybe like a wash or something? Sure, that's definite. But this will catch the light well enough that it's probably okay. And then a little bit of shading on the pants probably could have been nice, but the upper body is really what your focal point's going to be anyway, and it looks glorious. It is great. So good. The sculpt is really nice on this guy too. They definitely went for like a leaner looking Broly, and I personally like that a whole bunch. I don't care for the green skirt thing, but otherwise I like this idea for Broly. And I also like the fact that his face is probably the best sculpted face we've seen out of any Figuarts Dragon Ball figure ever. It's so good. It's so expressive. And they got all the recesses and things in there sculpted so nicely, and quite often with the Figuarts line we see these kind of things on prototypes. I think it was the Super Saiyan Vegeta that was the most noticeable case of this, where it looked great in the proto pictures and then it got real soft by the final release. This guy looks great. Then the paintwork on the face is also excellent. The red and black around the eyes, perfect. Looks so good. And obviously the scar is painted, the mouth is painted. I don't know why they used yellow to do the line work on his face though. That's a little bit weird, but it's not super noticeable without really harsh lights and getting too close, so that's okay. And then the hair, they went back to using this metallic kind of pearlescent look, which I think is actually probably the best look that they've done for the Super Saiyan hair. So if they continue with that trend, I'll be okay with it. It doesn't really matter, I guess, either way. A lot of people like the flat color, some people like the real glossy color. I think this is good. As long as it's not that unpainted crap that we saw a couple of times, this is fine with me. But all in all, aesthetically speaking, this guy is great. I love it. There are a few issues with the articulation, which are technically aesthetic issues, but we'll talk about that as we cover the articulation. So aesthetically speaking, this guy gets a 9 out of 10. But wait, there's one more thing we haven't mentioned. His feet are gigantic. They are basically the same size as his lower legs. That's not how it works at all. Your feet are not supposed to be that big. His feet are not supposed to be that big. It looks pretty darn goofy. It's not as obvious as it was in a lot of the earlier pictures, especially once you get him posed, you might be able to not notice it as much, but they're still pretty damn big. So he was going to get a really high rating. Now he's only going to get... I'm still giving him an 8. That's still pretty high because it's still so good otherwise. If you ignore the feet, it's a pretty aesthetically pleasing figure. But those damn feet are huge. They're big. All right, as far as accessories go, we have 3 different faces. We have the neutral face that comes on him in the package. I say neutral, but it's pretty much just angry face. Then we have the angry, smirky, laughy face, which looks fantastic again. And then we have the yelling face, which might even be the best of the 3. Man, they nailed it. It looks so good. It looks so good. So good. Love these head sculpts. Gosh. Then we have 3 sets of hands. I almost said 4 because I can't count. We have 2 fist hands. We have 2 kind of wide open hands. And then 2 more grapple-y type hands. And that's it. Not the most accessories. Nobody seems to be giving him any energy effects. And I did watch the movie and I don't really remember. I guess he never threw any, huh? Did he? Not? I don't remember. Guess not. Because the Figuarts didn't have it. This doesn't have it. I guess he doesn't need energy effects. But still, we got some faces and some hands. That's it. That's not a whole lot. So like a display stand would have been a nice way to round that out or something. So I'm going to say we only get a 7 out of 10 for accessories just because the faces are so freaking good. They are so good. Okay, on to the articulation. Let me show you. I don't even know if I can show you. Can I show you? Let me see if I can show you. Yes, I can. Look what's in there. Can you tell? You should be able to tell. I'll give you a hint. It leans forward, it leans back, and side to side, and all the way around without doing any shenanigans. It's a double ball peg. It is exactly what it should be, and it's fantastic. The neck is also on a ball peg, which lets it move around. The only problem is the hair is very close to the body, and so you can't bring the head back at all. It's relatively limited, and there's not a whole lot they could have done with that other than to like create some collapsible parts in the hair, which I guess they could have technically done, but it would have been a total pain in the butt and probably cost a whole lot more. So you are still going to be pretty limited. You're going to be able to bring the head forward, no problem. Like have him looking down is fine, but looking up is not going to happen. Side to side's okay. I think that's good enough given that there's really no good way around it, so I can't really fault him for it. I mean, if you look, that hair is basically resting on his back, so there's nothing you can do about it, so I can't fault him. For the shoulders, we'll get to the butterfly joint in a second. We just have our standard ball peg, which pegs into the arm and can wiggle around a little bit like that, and then we have our hinge, which works phenomenally, no problem there. We do have our full rotation. Bicep swivel is kind of sloppy on this one. It's a little bit loose and doesn't have the best of range because of how far they seated that bicep or the shoulder down into the bicep, which I get why they did it. It's for aesthetics and that's fine, but that's why we have that issue. So be aware of that. This one's a little loose, this one's not. So maybe it's just a fluke on mine. Double jointed elbow works pretty well. How's it look? It's not the best. It's not terrible, but it's not the best. You get better than 90 degrees though. And then for the wrists, you have a double ball peg again. And that's because you're not going to need the most range out of those anyway. You'll be able to pose them well enough. Okay, on to the butterfly joint. It looks like it's a fancy joint, and I'm so glad that they went with this over what they were going to do, because the shoulders before were the same as like the Street Fighter Akuma, which are a bag of butts. It's terrible. This is much more functional, but, well, I'll get to it. This looks really good. I love that when you bring it out, it actually just looks like the muscles. They really nailed that, and it does give you enhanced range. Not a ton, but look at the difference. A lot of times with these butterfly joints, you don't actually gain anything, so they did do a good job with that. The only thing that's a problem is the way they did this muscle right here, which is part of the shoulder, technically speaking, in terms of the muscle groups, it just sticks up a little bit and looks a little weird. It's not a huge thing, but it is worth mentioning that that's kind of a, like, I don't know, it's a weird choice that they did. If you bring the arms up, it looks okay, but if you want to bring the arms down a little bit, it doesn't, so be aware of that. Okay, for the torso, it seems to be a little bit more basic and a little bit more limited. I can't pull it apart because it's really stiff and it doesn't want to, and I don't want to break it, but it feels to me like it's just maybe a single ball peg. I'm not feeling any hinges in there. I'm not even feeling a second ball peg. But as far as leaning him forward on just that top joint, you get that much, which isn't a ton, but it's probably enough. And going back, that's the entire range. So back to forward, It's not that much. Maybe there's I think there is maybe a hinge in there, but it's really stiff. Either way, it doesn't matter. It only matters how it functions. And going side to side is pretty minimal, not a lot. And then rotation is kind of offset, and you don't get a lot. And then you have another ball peg down here for the lower torso, which does do a little bit more leaning, mostly forward. And a little bit side to side, probably enough. And that's where you're gonna get your rotation. So combining all of those, and you probably have enough. It's not the most articulated thing in the world, but it also doesn't create a lot of gaps. And it still poses really nicely, so I'm very happy with it. Could have been more, but it didn't need to be, and I think that's okay. For the skirt, these front pieces are just soft, and that's fine. Then the back one is also soft, but it does have a hinge back here. I'm not sure why they put that butthole in there. I mean, this tucks into it, and I don't know why, but it does, and that hides it. So, that's weird. I don't quite get it, but it doesn't really matter because it just dangles there. It rotates with this piece up here, so it doesn't really do anything else. For the hips, we have basically the same kind of hips we always see. We have the hinges that go out to the side. You get literally perfect splits out of that, so that's good. No loose joints, nice and smooth movement. Bringing the legs forward, you get perfectly horizontal, if not a little bit better. No problem there. Going back, you're limited by the butt. That's as far back as you can go, which is still pretty far. And then you do have really nice thigh swivel in there. It works nicely. Double jointed knee. A little bit better than 90 degrees. Not the best looking, not the most functional, but it'll get the job done. And then we have our ankle, which goes back a little bit and not very far forward at all. It is technically a ball hinge, but you get minimal range. So just a little bit of an ankle rocker out of it. And then we have what might be the ugliest toe joint I've ever seen. Why'd they do that? Bandai, you know better than that, Bandai. It's stiff, so it'll probably hold it, but holy crap. They took an ugly foot and made it uglier. Why would you offset that hinge so much? That's just dumb. That is bad. That is so bad. So that's a bummer. So the articulation on this guy is not the most impressive ever, but it'll definitely get the job done, and it does lend itself to the aesthetics for the most part. The butterfly joint is great, except for that weird little muscle tab, and everything else works well enough, except for the toes and ankles. So I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10 for the articulation. And now it's time for the final verdict. Aesthetic-wise, this guy is really good despite the feet. Articulation-wise, this guy is really good, mostly aside from the feet. And accessory-wise, this guy is really good, except it could use some more. So ultimately, I'm going to give this guy, I think I'm going to give him an 8 out of 10, just because I'm very, very impressed by the sculpt and the paint job on the upper body. It is one of the most visually appealing figures I have seen in a very long time. They just really nailed the skin tone and the shading and the musculature. Very, very well done. Love it. It's going to be a really nice addition to the Figuarts shelf. So overall verdicts on this guy, I think that's probably fair. I think so. I'm going to leave it there. 8 out of 10. I'm tempted to go a little higher, but those big feet do give me some pause. So we'll leave it there, guys. Let me know what you think about this. Let me know what you think about two things. One, is this figure any good? And two, do you like this design over the original one, or do you like the original design better? Just for the character, not the figure itself. Alright guys, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please do give it a thumbs up. And if you like this kind of content, I've got like 3,000 other videos on the channel you might want to check out. So check out those playlists and you'll be able to find all kinds of stuff. And if you are not yet subscribed, you might want to do that, because I do have new videos out just about every single day. So make sure you come back for that. And in the meantime, keep collecting.